Hello Mets fans, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about some of the top Mets prospects, in my opinion, and how the Mets have so much depth in their farm system. I'm going to leave out some of the guys that have already had time in the big leagues to show themselves. So Nola McLean will be out, as well as Jonah Tong will also be left out of this video. So without further ado, let's get underway. So the first guy I'm going to talk about is Carson Bench. I think this one's kind of a no-brainer. He played in all sorts of levels of the minor leagues last year, and he ended the season in AAA. High average, he hit at 281, 25 doubles, 15 home runs, 73 RBIs. That's great. He's clearly an above average hitter. He shows some great offense, as I said, and also some great defense. He's quick, and I think that as he matures as a hitter and as a fielder, and once he gets up to the big leagues and then this upcoming season, the sky's the limit for him. I think he's going to progress a lot more, maybe get that 281 average to a 290 average, get some more hits. Maybe he's not a home run hitter, which is completely fine. If he's getting a high number of hits, that's perfectly fine. You have him in the leadoff spot or towards the middle to the bottom of the lineup, and you kind of have that feeling that he's going to get a hit in a situation that you need him to get a hit. That is a terrific fit for him in the Mets lineup. Second player I'm going to talk about is AJ Ewing. So Ewing has clearly shown a lot of rise with his potential. At the beginning of last year, he was not even a top 30 prospect for the Mets, kind of off the radar. And then he played tremendously this past season, hitting above 300, 26 doubles, 10 triples, 3 home runs, and 70 stolen bases in 124 games. 20 years old as well. So when you have a guy that young, that quick, that type of average, it's similar to Carson Bench, where he is clearly on the rise. And obviously, he's also going to mature. His line drive percentage has gone up like crazy from 20% to almost 30% in one season. So he almost brought that up 10% in one season. So you can really just imagine what could happen with him in the next couple of years, which is unbelievable. And clearly the speed is there, obviously the bat to ball skills, and this is why just these two guys alone is why I personally have so much confidence in the farm system that the Mets are growing right now and what the Mets franchise could be like in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe even less than that, because there are so many developing stars down in the minor leagues. Jet Williams, he's another guy. He's third on the list for me. By the way, there's no particular order on this. I'm just I put down some prospects, some notes about them, and I'm really going off of that. So Jet Williams, he finished off his season in Double A, hit 281, 29 doubles, 10 homers, 30 plus stolen bases. He had a little bit of time in AAA, but he did okay. Not his best numbers. So he finished off in Double A, and he's clearly an above average hitter, and he's got a lot of great numbers at the plate. He's obviously a smaller guy, a little bit shorter than the other two, but his velocity off the bat and in the field is very good, and it's similar to to the other two guys I talked to before. So if he's really getting those same numbers as those other two guys, and then that's fabulous because it clearly shows that the Mets have some big guys that hit the ball really hard, but then they have some guys that are a little bit shorter but stockier that also hit the ball hard. I've seen him a little bit. He has times where he overswings. However, that's a very common thing, and it happens to guys in the major leagues, happens to guys in the minor leagues, happens to guys at every level of baseball. So I don't think that's something that is a big issue for the Mets to worry about. So next guy I'm going to talk about is Ryan Lambert. So he's a reliever, and the Mets really need relievers. So he put up a 1.62 ERA in 46 games. 39 of them were in Double A. He allowed 31 hits in 50 innings, striking out 80 plus hitters. He's only got 2 pitches though. His fastball is 96 to 100, and then he's got a pretty nasty slider that sits in the low to mid 80s. He's struggling with his command, really, a little bit, but I'm sure as time goes on, maybe he's just overthrowing, trying to prove himself a little bit too much. Brings that down, fix some mechanics. I think he'll be great. And I've seen that his arrival time to the MLB could be this year, and that's critical for the Mets if they can get a strong reliever like him, then and he could be like, I don't want to say an Edwin Diaz, that's a little bit far for that, but if he can just be another spot in the bullpen along with Williams and Weaver and some of the other guys, that's a great fit. So Zach Thornton, another guy, he's also another pitcher. He was pitching great for the Mets in the minors. He got injured at the end of June, and unfortunately, that ended his season. However, he had a 1.98 ERA, and he had 14 starts, which is obviously somewhat of a small sample size, but his strikeout to walk ratio was 78 to 11. He's got 4 pitches, fastball, low 90s, and he's got great control. And then obviously he's got that slider curveball changeup that you see a lot of, and I think that he could be a great fit for the Mets in kind of the back of the rotation, as obviously the Mets have stepped up a little bit in the offseason and they've added a couple pieces for the pitching. So Dylan Ross is a guy I'm going to talk about. He was in the majors for the last few days of the season, but didn't do anything. So he never even debuted. So he's expected to get called up this season. 24 years old. He made it through all the levels of the minor leagues, and he was mostly in AAA. 2.17 ERA, allowing only 29 hits, and he struck out 80 guys. He's also a reliever, and I feel like the Mets have a lot of developing pitchers in the minors, a lot of bats in the minors. So I'm really hopeful that they can get quite a few of these guys up this year and maybe get that nice playoff push happening again. Strong first half of the season and second half of the season. We don't need to fall apart again in the second half of the season. And with some of these prospects, I think that the Mets could have a money season. So Ross has a great ratio of pitches. He's throwing high 90s with his fastball, touches triple digits, a lot of swing and misses. His low 90s splitter has a high whiff rate, and his high 80s slider has a 67.7% whiff rate. So clearly, this is a guy that you don't come by too often with that stuff that is just he's throwing the ball hard and he's just going to continue to throw the ball hard. He's not going to throw anything in the low 80s. Everything's going to be about 85 plus. So, I'm going to talk about Elian Pena. So, Elian Pena, he started in the Summer League of the Dominican Republic, and he played in 46 games. He started 0 for 26, and then he went on an absolute tear. He finished hitting 342 with a 1,081 OPS, 13 doubles, 9 homers, 32 RBIs, and 18 stolen bases. And his walk rate to strikeout rate as a hitter was 33 walks to 29 strikeouts. That is an amazing showing at the plate from such a young guy. Obviously, he's still got a lot of developing to do, and those numbers are very, very high. So he'll probably it'll probably take a little time for him to make it to the major leagues. We might see him when he's 20 or 22 um along those lines of ages, but obviously he's gonna get a lot stronger and he might get more home runs because clearly he's showing a lot of flashes of power. So maybe he gets the home runs up to closer to the 20 to 30 range. And maybe that uh, the average is a little bit high to keep getting up, but he's still very young and yeah, I mean, there's clearly a lot of potential there, and he's only 18 years old. So a guy like him is really, really special to have in the farm system. So, one of the last guys I'm going to talk about is Ryan Clifford. Obviously, his average was low. He hit 237, but he had 23 doubles and 29 home runs, which was some of the top in baseball on top of his 71 RBIs. His hitting skills are supposed to be below average. However, I see that there could be a lot of potential with him. Strikeout rate came down about 3% from almost 30%, 29.6% to 25.6% in 2025. And clearly he just hits some fly balls. So if he could figure out a way to kind of have a similar approach that AJ Ewing does with those line drives, and get that average up a bit while still being able to hit close to 30 home runs, he's obviously going to be one of the best guys to have in the majors. The one of the ninth guy I'm going to talk about is Jack Weninger. I think that's how I say his name. I'm not 100% sure. So he really rose up this past season. He was in Double A about the whole season, 2.92 ERA, and almost 136 innings, and he was a top 20 pitcher in minor league baseball. He threw 147 strikeouts, and he was a critical factor in Double A in the Double A Binghamton's Eastern League Championship. So he's got 4 pitches. His fastball has gone up in velocity, even getting so high to 97. One of his best pitches is his splitter, and that's his swing and miss pitch, which a lot of pitchers do have. So the splitter is the one he uses, and he also throws a slider and curveball in there. And he's projected to be a bottom of the rotation starter for the Mets. I don't know if he's going to come up this year. Are they going to let him get to AAA, start him in AAA, and then see how he progresses, have him come up towards the middle to the end of the season like Nolan McLean? They might give him one more year, see how he does in the minor leagues. But with a lot of these guys that are performing very, very well in Double A, in my personal opinion, I like to see them start the season in Triple A, see how that goes for them, and then if they're playing well, maybe try them in the major leagues. Give them a couple games. If they're not playing well, well, then obviously you put them back down to AAA. But at least they have a bit of that experience, and then they might improve even more in the minor leagues, or they realize an adjustment that they have to make so that they can thrive. So, the last guy I'm going to talk about is Will Watson, and then we'll just wrap it up after that. So, he was actually a late draft pick in the 7th round. He's another guy that got to Double A Binghamton, 2.6 ERA, almost 100, about 120 innings, 88 hits, and striking out 142 guys. Another guy that has 4 pitches with his fastball velocity rising, getting up to 97. he's not an over-the-top pitcher, so he's a little bit of a three-quarter arm guy, which is it's nice to have in the rotation because it's not necessarily a thing that you see a ton of. You really see a lot of guys throwing completely over the top. So and then on top of that, he's got his slider, slider, changeup, and cutter. So he's another young guy. He's got some issues with command, but obviously a lot of potential there. Could be a big league starter. And if he's not making a huge push, he's previously been a reliever. So maybe they have him up in the big leagues, try him as a starter. If he shows good stuff, but just isn't really getting the job done, put him in the bullpen, or the other way around. If he's showing great stuff in the bullpen, move him to a starting role, maybe similar to what they did with Clay Holmes. And then you really just have to go from there. So that's basically going to wrap it up for this video. That was just my personal opinions on on about 10 prospects that the Mets have in their farm system. Clearly, there's a lot of potential there on not just the offensive side, but on the pitching side, as I tried to mix in a little bit of offense as well as some pitching in there. So hopefully the Mets will be able to call up some guys this year, or some of those guys in AA will go to AAA and they'll blossom even more and get a lot better. So I think that's going to wrap it up. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If you share it with a Mets fan, I'd be happy to have anyone on the podcast that wants to talk about the Mets. And let's go Mets. Have a good one.